In today's video, we bring you a real-life incident that will shake your heart. This is not just the story of a helpless woman. It is a cruel reality of power abuse, betrayal, and revenge that took place inside the palace of a sheikh in Saudi Arabia. This sheikh appeared to be a kind, religious man in public. But inside his palace, there was a dark game going on that no one could have ever imagined. Because a simple, innocent woman was being kept by the sheikh and used day after day. He gave shelter to that woman, helped her, but behind that help, there was a terrifying trap. And when that woman's husband returned and learned the truth, what happened then? What did he do with the woman's husband? And what happened to that woman's fate? And in the final moments, what truth was revealed? That shook the entire city. To know everything, do not skip a single second of this video. Watch till the very end. Friends, at that time I was working in Saudi Arabia at a renowned home decoration company. Our job was to enhance the beauty of the houses of rich and elite people by doing various designs and finishing work. Wherever the company owner sent me, I used to go without question. One day a location was sent to my mobile. In a massive high-end residential area of Riyadh, the ceiling design of the client's house had been damaged and needed fixing. I reached there on time. As soon as I rang the doorbell, a little girl came out. She spoke clearly in Bengali. She said, "Who are you?" I told her I came to work on the ceiling. She ran inside. After a while, a middle-aged Saudi sheikh came out. His face showed sincerity, politeness in his words. He took me inside the house where the work needed to be done. I started working. Fixing the ceiling's gypsum and lighting would take about 1.5 hours. After finishing the work, he smiled and said, "Would you like to have a cup of coffee?" Such behavior is not commonly seen. I nodded in agreement. Just then, his wife entered the room with a coffee tray in hand. And at that moment, my body shook. That was Naima, my wife Naima, who had died 3 years ago in a road accident. I stood up staring in disbelief. "Naima, it's you?" The woman stood silently, clearly uncomfortable. Then the gentleman slightly frowned and said, "What are you doing? Please stay away from my wife." But my chest began to pound. This woman is Naima. Her eyes, lips, way of walking, all were exactly the same. Had Naima really died, or was someone keeping her alive in another life? The man said, "Zarina, go inside." I froze. Zarina? No, she is Naima. I raised my voice and said, "This woman is my wife. How can you marry someone else's wife?" After hearing this, the man immediately grabbed the collar of my shirt. He glared and said, "Don't you dare say a single bad word about my wife. She is only my wife, Zarina, not Naima." That person, whom he called Zarina, stood quietly. There was a strange pain in her eyes, and a deep denial in her gaze. She said nothing and slowly left the room. I couldn't hold myself back. I shouted, "You've kidnapped my wife. I won't spare you." He pushed me out through the door. I fell in front of the door. Severe pain in my head, everything in front of my eyes went blurry. Inside me there was a sound of breaking. I couldn't understand. Is this real? Or some illusion in my mind? She was my wife, Naima. No matter how many times I told myself, this couldn't be a trick of the eyes. How could she become the wife of another man? Helplessly, I came down to the street. There was no strength in my legs. I sat down beside a road. I am a man, but that day I could not hold back my emotions. I broke down and cried. 8 years ago from today, Naima came into my life as my wife. That night was a chapter of my life that I could never forget. The first time I saw Naima, it felt like I was dreaming. How could so much beauty exist in one person? It was hard to understand. I was an AC motor mechanic, a son of a poor family. Naima also came from a simple household. Our marriage happened through a sort of understanding. I had never seen Naima before marriage. I only heard that they were so poor that they couldn't even afford wedding expenses. They couldn't offer anything other than simple clothes. My parents were not happy at all about this marriage because they couldn't accept a wedding without dowry. But when I saw Naima for the first time, I realized some things cannot be bought with money. Her beauty mesmerized me. That's why eventually even my parents agreed. Just thinking, the girl is very beautiful. After marriage, my love for Naima started growing little by little each day. But my mother could sense it, and maybe she didn't like it. My mother had a temperamental nature and believed that after marriage, a son forgets his mother. I used to come home after work. I wanted to spend some time with Naima, but my mother would call me and keep me engaged with many talks. Sometimes she would say, "After marriage, you don't even look at us anymore." I tried to explain that it wasn't like that. At night my father would be sick, so I had to massage his legs, and by then, Naima would get upset and fall asleep. In the morning, I had to rush back to work again. One day my company boss said, "My elder brother owns a home decoration company in Saudi Arabia. If you go there, you can earn a lot of money. If you want, you can work there. You'll earn double." My parents were very happy hearing this, but Naima broke down. She said, "If you go, take me with you." I said, "Let me go first and settle down a bit, then I'll bring you." But she cried and said, "You'll go and forget me making excuses, and here your parents will make me work all day. I haven't had a moment of peace. At night without you by my side, I can't even fall asleep." I understood Naima's pain, but in front of me was a chance to escape poverty. My mother was stubborn, and Naima, an innocent wife who only wanted a little love and shelter from me. But maybe I couldn't give her that shelter properly. Actually, my mother had an old-school mindset. She believed a daughter-in-law was nothing more than a maid, and a son's entire love should only belong to his mother. She was afraid that a wife's love might take her son away from her. I explained everything, but caught in the situation, I couldn't say much. I had decided I would go to Saudi Arabia, stand on my own feet, save some money, then bring Naima to me. That night, wiping her tears in the darkness, I hugged Naima and said, "I really don't know how I'll pass the days without you. Believe me, this is just a matter of time. I will bring you." Naima had become very quiet then. In her eyes there was resentment, but also a deep shadow of love. She knew I was being forced, but her heart didn't want to accept it. I tried to explain to her, "My mother may never truly accept you. You know, the money I send, none of it will actually reach your hands. So before I go, I'm giving you as much money as I can. I've saved it with great difficulty, but right now, this is all I can do." Naima said nothing, but looking into her eyes, I understood. She was making me understand everything. At the moment of farewell, her gaze was filled with fear, and on the other side, love. In one glance, 1,000 unspoken words. Maybe she was saying, "If you really don't return." But I knew I would come back. Because as much as I loved Naima, she loved me even more. A kind of love that wasn't just expressed in words, but in the behavior of the eyes, in silence. Then, that day, I set off for Saudi Arabia, and I reached there properly, and started focusing on my work. That's how a few days passed. Suddenly one day, Naima called me crying and said, "Your mother has turned my life into hell. Now she doesn't even let me eat properly. She won't even let me stay at my father's house. Today until night, she made me work continuously. Take me away from here quickly, or else I'll take poison and die." Hearing this from Naima shocked me. I said, "Don't even think of doing such a thing. For the sake of Allah, don't do anything like that. Try to understand my situation. It's only been 1 month since I came here. If I go to my boss now and say that I want to bring my family here, he will throw me out. And you know very well how much debt I've taken to come here. Don't worry. I'll call my mother and ask her to let you stay at your father's house for a few days. I'll send money to your father's house. Buy some new clothes for yourself." After hearing me, she became quiet. She used to call me secretly, otherwise my mother wouldn't even let me talk to Naima on the phone. The phone was always kept in my mother's room. When I used to call my mother, I said, "Ma, I want to talk to Naima. Please give her the phone." Then Mother would say, "How shameless. You're calling your mother just to talk to your wife." No need. There's no need to talk to your wife every day. If you keep talking to her all the time, then when will you work? Mom would say all this and then cut the call. One night I called my mother and said, "Ma, if possible, send Naima to her father's house for a few days." Mother, in a bit of an irritated tone, said, "Why? Is the bride suffering here? Is the in-laws' house a hotel now? Comes and goes whenever she wants?" I slowly said, "No, Ma, it's nothing like that. She hasn't gone to her father's house in a long time. She needs a little rest." After much convincing, finally Mother agreed. I sent her the travel expense myself. Naima felt a little relieved after going to her father's house. From there, she used to call me almost every day. But one day, suddenly, her voice sounded heavy. She said, "Junaid, your mother has started beating me. I can't take it anymore. Even my health isn't good." I sat still with the phone in my hand. Sitting thousands of miles away, I couldn't wipe her tears. I could only listen, but I couldn't do anything. That night after finishing work, I sat quietly. I took Naima's photo out of my wallet and kept staring at it for a long time. Just then my boss came by. He saw the tears in my eyes and said, "What happened, Junaid? Why are you upset?" With my head down, I said, "Sir, there's a bit of trouble back home. Family problem. My wife is suffering." Sir remained silent for a while, then said, "Then why don't you bring her here?" I smiled and said, "Sir, I don't have that capability. I've come here with a lot of debt from back home. I'm a man. I can somehow get through the night. But if I bring my wife, we'll need a separate room, a good environment. I don't have the means to provide that now." Sir looked at me and said, "Then take some money as a loan from me. I'll deduct a little from your salary each month. At least your wife will be free from suffering." Then Sir arranged a house for me. He said, "Though the house is small, it's tidy and well arranged. Everything is available, and the rent is very low. You and your wife will be able to stay here very nicely." Hearing such words from Sir made my heart feel light, as if I had laid down a heavy stone of worry. I called my mother and said, "Ma, I've decided. I'm going to bring Naima to me." Mother, upon hearing this, responded irritably, "Why does she need to go there again? She's doing just fine with us." I said, "Ma, I can't stay alone here anymore. Missing her is getting harder to bear each day." At my words, Mother became angry. Just then, Abu took the phone from the side and said, "Don't worry, son. I will take Naima to the airport myself." Abu's words brought tears to my eyes, as if in a moment all the bitterness was washed away. I told Sir everything. He too extended a helping hand very sincerely. He said, "I will arrange the visa and the ticket." When everything was finalized, I sent Naima a copy of the ticket. Her flight was via Dubai to Saudi Arabia. On the day of the flight, I reached the airport a bit late. While standing in front of the gate, I saw all the passengers coming out one by one. My heart started to tremble, but even though everyone had come out, Naima didn't. It felt like time had stopped. All the sounds around me seemed to slowly fade away. Right then, I asked a staff member, "Why hasn't my wife come out yet?" They said, "All the passengers of that flight have already exited." It felt like the sky collapsed on my head. I called Sir and explained everything. He said, "Don't worry. I'm coming to the airport now." Very soon he arrived at the airport. He said, "I know an officer here. We can inquire through him." I sat there anxiously. After a few minutes, Sir returned and said, "Junaid, your wife didn't board the final Saudi flight. She came only up to Dubai, but didn't transfer from there. She got off in Dubai." It felt like I forgot how to breathe. One question kept spinning inside my head. Why? Why did Naima do this? How could Naima make such a big mistake? I had clearly explained it to her over the phone. I had made her understand very well that she must not get off anywhere else. She must only get off when everyone else does, because the final destination of that flight was Saudi Arabia. How could Naima make such a big mistake? It felt like my heart was being ripped out of my body. How will I find her now? My boss was a very kind man. He took me with him to Dubai. There, he dug out all the information. There, we learned that a passenger named Naima had gotten off at the airport. She had gotten into a car and gone somewhere. Later, we also came to know that the car she had gotten into had an accident. My boss worked very hard to trace the taxi number and the people injured in that accident. We then went to the hospital where they were kept. When I saw the girl lying on the hospital bed, her face was terribly burned. Her hands and feet were burned too. The vanity bag found from the taxi. Upon seeing that, I broke into tears even more. That bag was full of my memories. I always cried thinking of my wife. At that time, my company boss was by my side. He said, "Maybe this is what was written in fate. Please don't suffer anymore. There was a stranger beside your wife. That's why she got off in Dubai, not understanding the situation. And then she fell victim to that accident." From the next day, I drowned myself in my work. After 8 years, today I saw Naima again. But as someone else's wife. How could Naima do this to me? Even though she was my wife, how could she marry another man? Early the next morning, I went back to that house. As I knocked on the door, the same man opened it. Seeing me, his face turned serious for a moment. He said harshly, "Why have you come here again?" I calmly said, "Please listen to me once with attention. I haven't come to fight." Looking him in the eyes, I said, "The woman in your house is not only my wife, she is still my lawful wife. Naima and I are not divorced yet. According to Islamic Sharia, this is clearly haram. A married woman who hasn't divorced her husband cannot marry another man. You can, if you wish, verify this with any respected Islamic scholar or alim. I just sincerely want you to understand the truth. I'm only asking for the right of my wife, not to belittle anyone." The man became serious then. He stared at me for a few seconds, then turned his face away and said, "Keep your religious knowledge to yourself. Don't come here and do drama again. And if I see you in this area again, I'll call the police." I quietly walked away from there. It felt like I had just lost someone. Not just a wife, but an entire permanent chapter from my life. In my mind, I kept thinking, did I really come too late? Everything in my life fell apart because of just one incident. I knew Naima still loved me, so, as a final attempt, I decided to speak to her directly. I started watching the area near that man's house for a few days. When does she leave? When does she return? I observed everything. One day, to my surprise, I saw my factory owner coming out of that man's house. The evening light was fading then. From a distance, I saw Naima standing on the balcony, talking to a man. They were talking like they had known each other for many years. My heart trembled. What is happening in my life? Naima isn't just my wife. She is the biggest shelter in my life. I couldn't keep my heart calm. The next day, late at night, I decided to see the end of everything. I silently climbed the wall and entered that house through the window. The scene inside shattered my heart. Naima was sitting in a corner hugging a small girl, and that man was saying in a deep voice, "I've paid a lot of money. You'll never be free from me." Naima was crying uncontrollably then. Her voice was trembling. Tears were falling from her eyes. She said, For the sake of Allah, let me go. I am his wife. I am his honor. You have humiliated me for years. Fear Allah. The man, annoyed, opened the door and left, and I didn't wait. As I pushed open the door and entered, Naima immediately jumped into my arms. She hugged me and started crying as if all the pain of an era was pouring out of her chest. In a trembling voice, she said, "Junaid, please take me away from here. I can't take it anymore." I calmed her and asked her, "How did you come here?" She revealed she was supposed to go to Dubai, but after landing at the airport, a well-dressed man came and said, "Junaid has sent me. Don't worry." That man took her into a car, then made her eat something and made her unconscious. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in an unknown place, in a horrific prison, and from that day on, she was never freed again. I sat silently then. A little girl was staring at me. There was a storm of questions on her face and in her eyes. I asked, "Whose child is this?" Naima lowered her head and said, "This is your child." I was pregnant even before I came to Saudi. I wrote you a letter, but I don't know if it ever reached you. My body went numb. It felt like someone placed a stone on my chest. My child. She is a piece of my own existence. She never even knew her father for all these years. The next day I went to that house with the police. Based on Naima's statement, my boss and that sheikh from Saudi Arabia were arrested. I got my wife back. I got my child back. But there's one thing I never got back again: the normalcy of my life. This incident left a permanent scar on my heart, one that will never heal. I thought I would earn foreign money, bring happiness to my family, secure our future. But I didn't know that the price of that greed would be paid by my wife. Even today, I can't sleep at night. I keep thinking, if I hadn't left my wife back then, if I hadn't handed her over to strangers without verifying, maybe today's nightmare wouldn't have happened. Oh, Allah, please protect our mothers, sisters, wives, daughters, all women, and may no one else suffer because of the wrong decisions we make.